Good evening, and welcome to the Neighborhood Passions Affinity Network presented by Google Fiber and Neighbor to Neighbor. My name is Jim Hawk, and I'm the Executive Director here at Neighbor to Neighbor, and I'll be your host this evening. Tonight, we're focusing on one of 8 key neighborhood passions, making government work for our neighborhoods. We'll be looking at the North Nashville Participatory Budgeting Project and its implication for neighborhoods beyond North Nashville and Bordeaux. Participatory budgeting is a chance for communities to decide together on how money is spent. Residents craft proposals and present them to the community. Then residents vote on how to invest in their neighborhoods. In this system, local residents have a direct line to city officials and the funding needed for their improvements. The mayor's office has allocated $2 million in funds to be distributed among districts 1, 2, 3, 19, and 21. During this session, we're going to discuss how the process is going in North Nashville and its potential for neighborhoods across the metropolitan area. I'm very pleased to welcome Fabian Bedne as our guest tonight. Officially, Fabian is Senior Manager of Community Development in the Office of Mayor John Cooper. He's responsible for engaging with Nashville residents, working on program development, and supporting needed investments. As many of you know, Fabian is a former member of Metro Council representing District 31. But beyond all that, he's just a good guy that everybody should know. And so tonight, I want to take time to welcome Fabian and start off, Fabian, with this. I want to make sure everybody understands now. This is not one of the myriad North Nashville participatory budgeting conversations that have been going on in North Nashville. This is really about what participatory budgeting is and how it might be used in your neck of the woods outside of that area. And so I'm really excited to do that. And Fabian, I know personally that this is something that you have been interested in for a very long time. And if you don't mind, I thought we would start tonight by just finding out how you first learned about participatory budgeting and what drew you to it.
Well, thanks, Jim, and thank you all for joining us today. Like Jim said, this has been a passion of mine, and I'm happy to talk about it. And being a recovering politician, put a microphone in front of me and I'll talk. So, my background is in architecture, and I worked in doing many buildings that you guys may know. Like I designed the Howard Office building, for example, and many schools in Metro and so forth. So the one thing I learned in architecture is that the purse, whoever controls the purse controls the design. And if you have a client that wants a building that is awkward or whatever, if that client has the money, that's the way the building would look like. So even when I was in college, I was very interested in participation. How do we build a city like it used to be done like 200 years ago, when people would just build their own house? And you go to some parts of Europe that look so pretty and you see all that diversity, and it is because people build their own street. The city kind of follow the culture and the community instead of having the bureaucracy regulating how things should look like. So how did we manage to do that in the modern day? And then I came to learn about participatory budgeting at a conference I went. I was at the White House, and this council member out of New York had a presentation about it. And I thought that's what will close the gap. It will actually give residents the control of the purse, and therefore it will help them control the built environment where they live. So I started advocating for that. I talked to Jim back then, and he was interested as well. And many of us were interested, but the momentum wasn't there yet. And Councilmember Cooper, Mayor Cooper, sorry, he decided that he wanted to do a pilot program with it. I mean, one of the first things I did when I started working for him is to make a presentation about it. I wanted to see if he might be interested in doing that in Nashville. And well, thank God he agreed to do a pilot program and to do it in a part of the city that traditionally didn't get the level of investments that it should get. And so we actually were able to get the stars lined up to where, you know, we do this pilot program, try a new thing that it hasn't been done in anywhere in Tennessee yet. It's been done in many cities around the country, small cities, big cities, East Coast, West Coast, all over the place, but never in Tennessee. So we had a chance to do a pilot program here for the first time in a way that empowers the residents to, like I said before, to build their own city, to start shaping their street, their community, the public space.
So Fabian, there's a lot of people in the room here that are not from North Nashville, so they haven't heard a lot about participatory budgeting, or maybe they have, but outside this group. Can you break it down? What exactly is this thing that we're talking about?
Well, it has really some key roles, but the most important thing is that at the end of the process, the residents in a community vote and decide what things will get funded based on how many votes. It uses the democratic process to fine tune what items get funded. So the issue was like, how do we get to a legitimate voting process? How do we make sure that people trust that that process is really participatory and not just some kind of a hidden bureaucratic way to make it happen? So I think the people that invented this like 15 years ago actually in Brazil was when it was created. They decided that to bring the process legitimacy, then there had to be more than just an election. And so what they did is, what PV does in general is the people in a community that are going to use PV, the first step is to create the rules for the process. So people come together, delegates, a steering committee is formed that comes up with a set of guidelines for the process for that for that cycle, for that year. This usually works in cycles because it matches. We are now on the 2021 cycle, and this is the 2021 participatory budgeting process. So the first thing is to create those guidelines, and it has to be done, like I said, by representatives from the community. Then, this is the fun part, there is what we call idea collection. So it is a very intensive effort to get as many ideas as possible. The ideas don't have to make any sense. It could be any idea. You just want to get as many ideas as possible. Once that process is over, then the budget delegates, who are really also representatives from the community, will start using those ideas to create ballot items, to create those items that are going to be voted on. So the metaphor I've been using is the ideas are kind of like the ingredients, and the ballot item is the cake, right? But you can only bake that cake with the ingredients that I'm giving to you. You cannot just go and get new ingredients. So if people didn't propose an idea that you wish it was there, you cannot use it. I mean, the budget delegate cannot add ideas to the mix. It has to use only the ideas that have been submitted by the community. So like I said, there is all these checks and balances, and everything is supposed to be very transparent. And that's how it works. So the community make the rules, the community proposes the ideas, the community representatives also decide which one of those ideas are going to be voted on, and then on voting week or voting day, people will vote. And in this case, the mayor assigned $2 million. So all the items that get more votes, we're going to have 25 items on the ballot. So the items that get more votes, up to $2 million, will get funded. No questions asked. The money is there. It's up to the people. People vote. It gets I mean, it gets the majority of the votes, it will get funded.
I was just, so steering committee made up of residents set the rules. Then the residents, any resident in that area can make the suggestions. And then there's another group, the budgetary representatives. They sort of go through, see how much the idea is going to cost, put it on paper. And there may be 100 ideas, but they're going to select 6. And then those top 6 go before all of the residents for a vote.
Yep, in a nutshell.
How's that? Any questions so far?
It
Yeah,
is-
hey, go ahead.
Sorry, you know me.
You're okay, Ray.
So my question is, do the suggestions, is this in addition to the CIB for the area? Like, do the suggestions have to go in line with the CIB for, like, say, North Nashville or my neighborhood or whatever?
That's a great question. And I asked the lawyers that question to see if we had to create a special CIV item for each one of these ideas. And the answer was no, because we already, this whole process falls within a CIV number that already exists on the CIV. And I can't remember the number yet, but it's there. Otherwise, we couldn't have had it on the CSP and had it approved by the council. So, but there is a CIV number that already encompasses this process, and it enables these items to be voted on and funded. For everybody else that doesn't know, you know, the CIV is sort of like the enabler for the CSP, which is the spending. So if there is no CIV backing up the CSP, then the city cannot do it. And the CIV is a process that includes the mayor and the council, who will debate it on the council and decide which items go in or not go inside the capital improvement budget.
I was going to say capital improvement budget and then a capital spending budget. Yeah. Thank you. Quinta.
I just had a question. Is it 6 items? I mean, 6 ideas that are, or is it 25? I thought it was 20. It was saying 25.
25.
Yeah, it's 25 ideas that the community votes on.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I probably should have used that, but I would, since we weren't talking yet about North Nashville, I just pulled a number out of the hat.
That's the way I understood that you were just giving an example.
Yeah. But let's talk about North Nashville. How are things going there? You know, where are we in the process? What's the response been so far?
The biggest enemy has been COVID. I mean, this process requires a lot of in-person interaction. If you do it right, and you will see it on many cities, they have many meetings where people come and there is all this fervor and interaction or whatever. We haven't been able to do most of that. So that's really had taken a toll, not only on the ability to connect with the community, but also on the schedule. We haven't been able to give each part as the amount of time that we wanted to have. But we are looking forward to election day, because on election day, on voting day, people will be able to vote from their living room using, we're going to use Hub Nashville to vote. So, I mean, there's really no, COVID shouldn't have an impact on it. But honestly, what we need is people to talk about it, because even today, as with anything else, even today, people are like, I never heard of this. And I'm like, well, we've been on TV, we've been on social media, we've been on the media, you know, it's been on the newsletters from the council members, but it's still what we all face, right? That COVID has sucked the air out of the room, and it's made it really hard for information to travel. So if you guys don't mind just sharing and talking about PV with people you know, because I personally think it's a great opportunity not to fix the big ticket items, but to fix those little things that drives you crazy. You know, you walk out of your house and you trip on the sidewalk and there's no street light on your street, or you get to the corner and you go like, why isn't there a bench here so I can wait for the bus? Or then you go another street and you see kids playing on the street because there is no basketball court for them to play. And so there is all these little things that you wish that the city could do, but now you can. I mean, you can actually use this process to submit the idea and then advocate for your idea to be voted on an election day.
Yes, Ray.
That brings me to another point that I wanted to ask about. You know, I come from Brooklyn, and in Brooklyn, we had neighborhoods, and, you know, within 6 blocks of where I lived, there was a really big park called Prospect Park, which was modeled after Central Park, but it's smaller. It's in Brooklyn, but it was the same landscapers that did Central Park, did Prospect Park. But in my area, I could walk to 3 or 4 smaller parks. Like one park had a bocce court, basketball courts, swings for the kids. At the time we had monkey bars, you know, seesaws, things that now are not safe, but, you know, we survived. But anyway, you know, they had small neighborhood parks, and they even had a sprinkler thing in there because, you know, there weren't like pools all over the place in Brooklyn. So you know, especially in my neighborhood, it was a poor neighborhood, but they had a sprinkler thing there. And, you know, so in the hot summer days, you could go there and in your bathing suit and you could, or shorts, and you could get wet, and it was cool. But these were neighborhood parks. So is this something that can be done in like North Nashville? They need like smaller neighborhood parks for the kids to play safely and be, you know, and get together.
I think you're talking about like that park that Metro just did on Jefferson Street, which is, I think, a quarter of a block. Yes, the answer is yes. The only limit on this process is that nothing can be more than $2 million because that's the maximum
Right.
amount. But if somebody submits to purchase the land for a pocket park, and that's the idea that they submit, and then the city decides that that piece of land might cost $1 million, I'm just making that up. Yeah, that idea can be proposed, and then the budget delegates may consider to put it up for people for a vote. But if nobody submits that idea, then the budget delegates cannot do it. So it's really on the hands of the people to submit ideas, and one person can submit 1,000 ideas. There is no limit on how many ideas people can submit. and it is, I'm going to use this opportunity to clarify that people need to also submit an address. I mean, when you say, like Ms. Ray, like that you want to see a pocket park, then just saying that you want a pocket park is not enough. I mean, people should say, I would love to see a pocket park in such and such a street, or within a block of this intersection, because that's what the budget delegates need to really do their work.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's hard for them to do.
Yeah. Like I live 2 blocks from Centennial Park, so there's a playground there. There's, you know, things for the kids. But I'm talking about small little pocket parks like you're talking about, because the park I'm talking about was not even a full city block. It was a quarter of a block. And, you know, but they had all that stuff there. They fit it in, and it was a gathering place for the neighborhood. And it made you connect to your neighbors. It made you connect to the people that you're living with. And it's a good thing for the community.
Absolutely, I agree with you. But again, at this point, it's really up to people to submit the idea and to the budget delegates to go through the ideas. So that's great.
Fabian Billy has a question.
Yeah, hi, Billy.
Hi, Fabian. This procedure, and I think I missed it a while ago when you referred to a CIB. Is that the capital improvement budget?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm back with you now. So in my way of thinking, there's two budgets. One of them's the regular annual budget that's funded by property taxes primarily and the sales tax that Metro gets. And then there's a separate capital improvement budget, which for the big stuff, streets, roads, schools, things like that. Does this process include both of those? Because if somebody wants one school, that's going to fill
No.
a budget wish list right there.
So
And we need it out here in Antioch.
yeah, you have the first thing you describe is called the operating budget. And you're correct, it comes out of the property tax plus the consumption tax. Every time somebody buys something, a percentage of that goes to the state and a percentage comes to the city. We also get some pass-through grants from the federal government and the state, but for the most part is property taxes and consumption taxes. So that's what pays for the salaries, and it pays for grants and things that are non-permanent, like that every year you have to go back and pay again the salary of people. Now, the other thing, the capital spending plan, is the budget that deals with infrastructure and permanent goods, like things that are going to last 10 years, that are more than $50,000, that are on the right of way. You cannot actually use the capital spending plan to build gym, a deck in the backyard, for example. It has to be public property. So in general, the capital spending plan is funded through bonds, and the operating budget is funded through revenue. So that's the big difference between the two.
Let me kind of follow up on that a little bit. And I don't know the answer to this. I'm leaning on one side, but we have a lot of community meetings out here in Antioch about rezoning approvals.
Yeah.
And it comes up in just about every one of them that we should not approve any rezoning request until we have the infrastructure in place to serve that new development on that property. That kind of makes sense, but the new development would contribute additional property taxes and probably sales taxes. You know, do you have a feeling, or are we, how do you view that situation? Should we, in other words, basically, can we just freeze rezoning approvals for a year till we get the infrastructure in place and then start doing them again? Is that the way to go at this thing?
So Billy, I'm gonna have to ask us to hold on that question till the end, because we're really here to do the participatory budgeting tonight.
Okay.
That's a good question. It deserves an answer, but let's put that in the parking lot until we get through the participatory budgeting. Fabian, I did want to go back real quick, because a park can cost a lot of money. And I know that every participatory budgeting project has its own limits. This one's 2 million. And if I'm not mistaken, the limit for a project is up to $50,000, or it's around that for this. Is that right?
The minimum is 50,000.
It's a minimum of 50,000.
Yes.
Very good. And I just found out you have an ally on this tonight, Fabian, maybe several, but Jeremiah was actually he was a budget delegate in another city. Jeremiah, would you be willing to talk about that experience?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And Fabian, I'm so glad to see that participatory budgeting is happening here. I was really grateful to serve as a budget delegate in Queens, New York, in one of the very first cycles of participatory budgeting. So I'm glad to see we have other New York transplants on the call. As a budget delegate, I can just say that I found it to be a really powerful and engaging way to work with community. I was part of the ideation process, and that was how I got roped in to be a volunteer budget delegate. Was you share ideas and then people say, great, now help us implement them. And for me, I think one of the things that was really cool was what you stated earlier, and that is that as a budget delegate, you have to take the ideas and the limitations that you're provided and work with that. So at least in my experience, I was in charge of working with other city resources and government agencies to create a proposal, to look at budgeting, to look at prices, to create a presentation that was then shared with the community to allow them to vote. So I'm a huge fan. I'm glad it's here. And my follow-up question is, for communities where this does not exist yet, what can we do as citizens to go ahead and start talking about this concept and drumming up support for the concept itself and educate people about the power of participatory budgeting?
Well, first of all, I'm jealous, and I already sent you a text to call me later because I want to see how can I plug you in and see if you can talk to the new set of budget delegates that we are getting ready to get started with. Maybe you can talk about your experience with them. But
I'd be happy to.
The thing about PB, I think it's all about experience. I mean, anybody in this call probably has a level of mistrust of government, mostly because government is not perfect. We are all imperfect people, and we make mistakes, and mistakes sometimes are painful to others. And so we are always interested in earning that trust, and PB requires a lot of trust. And so part of the process, I think, is going to be trying to have a PB process that is successful to the point that at the end of it, people will go, I want it in my district. I want it in my neck of the woods. But I mean, if this is a failure, which I don't think it will be, but if it is, then the whole thing it's over. So my thinking as I'm working on this process is not only to serve the people of Bordeaux and North Nashville and help them do the best, having the best process they can have, but also at a selfish level to show that this is actually a good tool for people around the city to consider for their neck of the woods as well. And I saw today, and this is exciting because I saw that a committee was created, a nonprofit group is going to use the same system to work with the nonprofits. I think it's a 37208 group. Is going to be using the participatory budgeting process to help them decide how to make investment on private monies. And I liked it, but I also thought the PB organization has been advocating that the nonprofit sector uses PB as well. So PB, as I tell everybody, it's just a tool. It's a tool that you can use in many different ways. I mean, the same way that a hammer, you can use a hammer to break a wall or to fix a watch or to, nail, hang some drywall. Depending the hammer you use, how you use it, there are different types of hammers. So PB is the same way. You have a basic concept, and then you make it yours by working with the community and having the community shape that tool in a way that benefits that community. And so that's what we're doing.
Hey, Fabian, I know it's taken you a long time to be able to get to the point where this is a reality, even in this seedling form, right? Along the way, you've had to talk to a lot of people, and it might be helpful for us to hear what was the resistance? What were some of the things said, the reasons why people didn't want to go through this process?
Well, part of it was also my fault. I was the only council member that was talking about it, and I had other priorities in the council as well. So this was one of the issues that I spoke about. And also, when you are a district council member, your first duty should be to your constituency. And so that's my philosophy. And so I will actually focus mostly on what they wanted. And PB was something more like policy, citywide. So that's one reason I ran for at large. Unfortunately, I didn't win. but I wanted to use the at-large platform to push for citywide policies like participatory budgeting. So I got lucky that the mayor liked it, but if I didn't work for the mayor, if I work in the council, you'll be hearing me talking about the same thing anyway. The good news is there is another council member Suara, who actually is also passionate about PV, and we came to find out as we were on the campaign trail that we were both crazy about, you know, empowering people to make decisions about the budget. So it's funny. Now, I want to make sure that following something that Billy said, in this process in Nashville, we are only doing PV with the capital spending plan money. We are not using operating budget money. So like some people may submit an idea, I want you to hire another teacher or a social worker, or I want you to do something that is operating budget related, or give a grant to this church or whatever. It's not permitted because the money is only tied to the capital spending plan. However, in future years, if people want, it could include operating budget money as well. I mean, it's really, each cycle starts again, and you basically, you know, set a new set of rules, and that's how you do it.
Jim, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Thomas. And then Billy has a question after Thomas.
All right. What impact, if any, will reapportionment of the councilmatic districts have on the deployment of the monies you've been speaking of?
It has no impact.
Okay.
Yeah, because we didn't, and I'm glad you're asking this because like you heard Jim when he started talking that he described the district that overlap the region that we're working on. And so people tend to think like it hasn't been done equitable, like each district is getting a different percentage. The truth is that we didn't base this map on council districts. The mayor asked that we look into Bordeaux and North Nashville, and we didn't want to make a map ourselves. We didn't want to create a region ourselves. So we did some research, found a Bordeaux Chamber of Commerce map, and we found an opportunity zone map for North Nashville. So we use existing maps that had been crafted by people that live there, that interact there. And so we use those maps to create a region that is the boundaries for the participatory budgeting thing. It does overlap with 5 districts, but it's not based on those 5 districts. It just kind of happened to overlap. Some people also think that is a 37208 zip code related stuff. It is not, although it does overlap with that zip code.
And Kia
All right, thank you.
Jarman showed me last night that, and I put the link to the participatory budgeting again in the chat room, that, you know, it's very easy to find out whether or not you're in the participatory budgeting zone by going to that website. You can just put your address in and it says yes or no, whether you're part of it. So that's helpful. So we got a question on the vote. Billy wants to know, is it a Facebook vote by the people who submitted ideas or a formal vote by the entire committee? What's the voting process look like?
Well, the steering committee, we put it to the steering committee to decide what is the appropriate Bordeaux North Nashville way to do an election. And what we hear from them is that there is enough people in the community that are not confident in, there is a technological divide, a digital divide. And so they are exploring having other ways for people to vote, perhaps having ballot boxes throughout the community, or for people to be able to mail in a ballot. I don't know, because it's going to be the steering committee that is going to decide the mechanism. The only thing we know for sure is there's going to be a vote in December, likely on the second week. We are preparing the backbone, the technological backbone of this is going to be Hub Nashville, which requires that people register and get an account with Hub Nashville, and that's how we will know that people live in a particular place and their name and so forth. And then people will be able to vote either that way or any other way that the steering committee decides.
probably not a Facebook vote, right?
Absolutely not Facebook. No, not Facebook or any other thing. One thing that we're working on that we hope that be able to meet the deadline is to create an interactive map that people should be able to find on that website that you just put a link there. And so once the budget delegates are working on these different proposals, to be able to show the proposals on the interactive map. So that way people can get some more information, figure out, you know, graphically where the ideas are located. And then in future years, people will be able to go back to the map and say, you know, why did this idea get enough votes and why didn't this idea get votes? And maybe I should bring this idea back in. And part of the trust is about having that transparency available for people to see how it happened in prior years.
And to finish up with Billy's question, it's not just the people who, you don't have to submit an idea in order to vote, right? And anybody that's a resident can vote.
As a matter of fact, we knew that younger people in that part of the city feel disenfranchised. So we lowered the voting age to 14. So anybody that is 14 years old or older can participate in this process. They have to be residents. They have to live within that map that you talk to them about. But then if they live there, they are 14 years old or older, they can vote. And they don't have to submit an idea or anything to do it. They just need to vote. So we hope, my dream is that people, once we have that interactive map, that people will start campaigning on Facebook or social media, telling, hey, you know, vote for my, I don't know, bus shelter. And so that's hopefully drawing people to come and vote on election day.
And let's see here. And you mentioned, you said that 14 and over can vote. How old do you have to be in order to submit an idea?
I don't think there is any limit on submitting an idea. And we want younger people. As a matter of fact, Kia did a presentation at PearlCon, hoping that the younger people that go to school there will submit ideas as well, because if we want 14-year-olds to vote, we gotta make sure there are ideas that will appeal to them. So we're trying really hard to be all over the place, and Kia has really been very active, as you probably know, sharing information with people, but we need your help. I mean, we need people to, one thing I learned about being a candidate, they tell you this, you have to touch people 6 times. I mean, you go to somebody's house, they'll forget you. You send them a postcard, they forget you. Put a yard sign, they'll forget you. But if you do it enough times, they'll start going like, oh, that's Fabian Bedne. Okay. So the same is with this process. We need to constantly remind people, this thing is coming up, you know, it's going to pass you by unless you you take a chance and submit an idea. The deadline to submit ideas is coming up. It's in 10 days, October 17. So if they do it on October 18, it's useless. They have until the end of the day on October 17 to submit ideas, because the budget delegates are going to start working on October 18. And we don't want them to have to, because they are going to be under a schedule too. So we need to make sure that we don't, that we give them a good start to the process.
Lynn raised a question in chat. Does the current PB process have anything to do with the proposed project on the I40 Gap Cap?
No, it doesn't. It's not related. The cap was something that had more to do with, if I remember correctly, Eric Brown was telling me that there was efforts from the local community a long time ago to try to reconnect the community, because the freeway, as it did in many cities in this country, destroyed local communities by dividing them in half. I see Ray nodding because it was part of the stuff I saw in the book you recommended I read, how Moses did that in New York. So yeah, so the idea is to heal the city by having this cap and reconnecting two parts of the community that were like basically cut through. But it wasn't really something that it was related to PV. The connection really, it comes down to the mayor. The mayor is very interested in an equitable development of the city, creating opportunities for everybody. And he knows that that part of the city was sort of left behind, and he wanted to do that in there.
Any other? Well, go
There is,
ahead.
there is an opportunity to get involved with that. I think it's this Saturday, there's going to be a community meeting about it. And I can tell you that if people don't want the cap, it won't happen. So if you like the cap, make sure you go to those meetings and let Faye and the end people know that you are interested. But if you don't want it, make sure that they know that you don't want it. I mean, Faye is very clear to me that this is going to be up to the community if it happens or not.
Any other questions? I'm mindful of Billy's. We'll get back to that if we don't have any other question here. All right. Yeah, then let's close that. Let's begin closing out here. Billy, Fabian, do you remember Billy's question? Or I need to get Billy to ask it again.
Ask me again, Billy.
Mayor.
Okay.
I'm on mute.
But yeah, basically I'll sum it up. Is there any benefit to freezing all
Oh yeah, I remember now.
rezoning requests until we get the infrastructure in place to service those new developments that would come from that rezoning? Is that a plausible idea?
No, it's not because of state law. We cannot do development. We cannot freeze rezonings or developments. I mean, it's some of my peers in the council wanted to do that in the Antioch area. And there is a way to do a freeze up to 9 months, I believe, but there is no way to do a permanent freeze because people have entitlements. I mean, you own your property, you own the right to develop your property. And we don't live in a communist country, so it's not that the government can take away your property rights. However, although I agree with you that we should build the infrastructure, also the state doesn't let us do impact fees. Mayor Cooper went to the state and asked that we will give him an opportunity to do impact fees so we could manage our infrastructure better, but the state decided not to allow us to do it. So the only way we have now to deal with infrastructure is to ask a developer that is going to have an impact in the city to redress some of that impact by building infrastructure. So right now, if you go to the Planning Commission and you pick up any of the reports that they are supposed to do, there will be a traffic study and a recommendation to do some infrastructure investments by the developer. There might be a request to do something to deal with water runoff and different things that they are placed as a condition for development of that property. But those things usually don't happen a priori. They happen at the same time or even later. Like in some cases, if a developer is building 600 units, they may say, well, when you get to the 100 units, then you have to put a traffic light here. And when you get to the 300 units, then you have to put a turn lane here. And so it doesn't happen before it gets done, but it happens during or even after. So, but that is partially because there is no way to create an impact fee to build everything a priori, as far as I know.
Thank you. That's very good. I just got one more real quick comment. I went on the internet to look at the budget thing that y'all put together. About 790 pages. and I was terribly impressed. That is one heck of a budget thing. I ticked and tied a lot of figures, and y'all have done a lot of work. You got a great program there, and I just want to make sure I got that in.
That's the planning department. They do the capital improvement budget with information from all the departments and the council members and so forth. Yeah, they do a good job, but they are mandated to do it by the charter. The city charter requires that the planning department puts together the capital improvement budget.
Well, they've done a good job.
And Fabian, Ron Hogan over in Germantown just hopes that next time they'll be included in the next PV project. So keep that in mind, would you?
Well, if it was up to me, we'll do it all over the city.
Everywhere, yeah.
I trust that people know what's better for them, and I trust that people know what improvements need to happen in their community. And so I hope that we can get there, but this is a good start. I hope you guys agree that it's a good start. And I'm very thankful to the many people that are volunteering, because this takes a lot of time from people, and they have put a lot of work to local residents that have volunteered to get us to this place. So I'm very thankful.
And I'm thankful, Fabian, for you being here tonight. I'm thankful that Jeremiah was able to share some of his experience as a budgetary or as a budget delegate. Thank you for being here, making this a great program. Everybody, next week we're off. It's fall break, so don't show up, all right? But in 2 weeks, we got a really exciting program. We're going to talk about Halloween in neighborhoods. And what that looks like. And we already have two groups. We have the Hain Heights. Quinta's going to be here to talk about what they do in their neighborhood. And Trinice Palmer is going to be here to talk about what they do up in the Madison area at the Oakwoods Park. If your neighborhood is doing something for Halloween, if your neighborhood organization is organizing something for Halloween, drop me an email, let me know, or give me a call here at the office, because we'd love to have you join us in that conversation next week, so we can learn how we create community by celebrating Halloween. Thanks for being here. Please remember, great neighborhoods do not happen by accident. It takes good neighbors like you and me working together, working hard to make your neighborhood and my neighborhood safe, healthy, and vibrant. So thanks for being here, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye-bye. Don't
Bye-bye.
forget Breast Cancer Month. Bye-bye.